Hello, and welcome to the Fireside Chat with Pawan Chawla, an industry evangelist currently associated with Tata Life Insurance Company as CISO and DPPO. Our theme for today's discussion is to see challenges of being a CISO and recipe for success. Pawan comes with 23 years of experience across diverse sectors, including BFSI, FMCG, BPO, e-commerce, and consulting. Pawan specializes in enterprise security architecture and operations. His focus is on using IT and enterprise software to drive business growth through strategic metrics and KPI management. He has led large teams, implemented cost-saving initiatives, and enhanced customer satisfaction. Pawan has all-round experience in managing all the facets of security, be it architecture, design, deployment of security solutions, performing business gap assessment, risk and change management, security testing, regulatory compliance, and technology integration. Pawan has also led high-performance teams and is well-versed with regulatory compliances, including ISO 27001 standard, NIST CSF, PCI DSS, and GDPR, and has extensive knowledge of risk management standards and frameworks like ISO 31000 and COBIT. So, Pawan, welcome to this discussion.
Hi, thank you, CP. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak about today's trend and on cybersecurity, latest trend, and what is going on in the industry. Looking forward to this fireside chat. I hope that I'll learn something from your side as well.
While cybersecurity has been an important topic since last few years and also is a boardroom agenda, but it looks like we are playing a catch-up game continuously, wherein we have to be on our toes all the time and race against syndicate of threat actors, including nation state. So how real is the risk? Is it widespread and only going to rise? How do companies like yours address this challenge? What is one strategy which you think is effective in ever addressing this threat landscape? And if you can share some of your experience, what has worked and what has not worked with respect to security initiatives and investment?
Sure. I mean, you touched based on a very important aspect, CP, because today, if you look at it, the way threat landscape is changing, you can hire an attacker at a cost of less than $10 per hour, and there are ransomwares which are available which can't be planted at a cost of less than $20. Combining these two services, it becomes a more regulated market than anything else. I sometimes believe that the cyber attackers market is much more stabilized and much more synchronized and much more advanced, much more collaborated than any other industry, which we can see, which we can foresee in these days. The risk of cyber threat is very real and continues to rise as attack becomes more sophisticated and widespread. Now, to address these challenges, I mean, companies must take a proactive approach and adopt strategies that may stay ahead and evolve to manage the evolving threats. The key recommendation I would say I would like to share is one is the proactive threat modeling, which is required because modeling with monitoring as well. Because the way threats are evolving, you need to keep on looking at the new challenges which are there in the organization and keep on increasing the monitoring and also the modeling aspect as well to develop the road blockers for them. So you need to create walls to stay protected. So the more you make it complex, it will be better for an organization to stay protected as well. So implement continuous monitoring and the real-time threat detection system to quickly identify and mitigate the risks is one of the key. The second is trusting at each and every step. So zero trust plays a very important role. Adopting a zero trust model where access is always verified, ensure a robust defense against unauthorized access plays a very important role. And once you start identifying and identifying and authenticating at each and every step, your threat reduces. The last thing and the most important piece in all these model is because everything starts with a click. So employee training becomes a very important aspect. So regularly training and awareness and running an awareness program in an organization to prevent human errors which often leads to a majority of vulnerabilities. With training, you can reduce that particular risk. So building human firewall is the key. You need to keep on educating employees with the latest threat, the trends which are going on, and accordingly keep appraising your training modules as well on a regular basis and ensure that each and every employee in the organization goes through that. A critical strategy is zero trust, which minimizes trust assumption by requiring verification at every access point, regardless of internal or external, as I mentioned earlier. On the other hand, investment in security tools without proper integration, employee engagement, and process alignment often fails. And this is one of the biggest challenge which the industry, I've seen my colleagues also facing that, because one side doesn't fit all. So not necessarily one tool which has been adopted by somebody in the industry is good for your organization as well. So hence you need to evaluate that particular tool thoroughly before even adopting it, so that it ensure that it gets integrated with the existing technology in the system. It does not become a burden, but it plays a important role. It actually needs to complement the technologies which are already there, implemented in the organization. So for example, purchasing advanced cybersecurity software without ensuring proper implementation or a training can lead to a poor utilization and gaps in protection, ultimately wasting resources. So success of security requires a comprehensive and integrated approach. Would be my take on this.
Thanks. I think you touched based on security by design by saying that we should implement zero trust architecture and also proactive threat monitoring both for internal and external attack surface, and then employee training who are managing myriads of security tools, and then how it is important to optimize both the security tools and people. But tell me one thing, that companies always have limited skills, manpowers, and budgets, but the demand for security tools, processes, and technology and specialized services just keeps on increasing with increase in attack surface. So how should anyone keep the pace of complex and diversified attacks, ensure compliance, and prevent cyber threats? How much you will keep on buying? Because you will go into an expense in depth problem, wherein with each tool, you will have to invest on CapEx and then OpEx, and then every year buy a couple of them more. So how do you address this challenge?
See, as you move forward, the way the threats are increasing, the threats landscape is changing. You need to keep on evolving as well, and you need to create a strategy. Now, when I say you need to create a strategy, you actually need to look at the threat landscape and prioritize risk management. Now, focusing on identifying and mitigating the most critical risks first. Not all threats need to be given the same attention. Like example, like when you find a vulnerability, you first try to you first have to fix the critical vulnerability, then move to the high, then move to the medium, and then focus on the low vulnerabilities. So similarly, in the risk management as well, you need to identify the most critical threat risk first, and then define a strategy to mitigate that as well. Similarly, at the same time, the way threats are evolving, you also need to adopt certain technology and leverage automation along with AI, because that will help you automate security tools, and AI-driven solution to detect and respond to threat more efficiently plays a very important role. You can't be putting. It is very difficult to put humans at all the place. So identifying a right solution which can bring in automation plays a very important role, and you need to identify those technology and adopt that. That will help you in reducing the need of extensive manpower and the challenges which every organization is facing, which is a skill challenge today. We all we as an industry has acknowledged that cybersecurity skills are very less there in the market, and there is a scarcity of skills. Let me put it that way, and that's where the technology plays a very important role, and we need to ensure that with the adoption of technology, we at least uh, fill in the gap. Till the time we get the people, at least we have technology to protect that. So the other aspect that can be looked at is the outsource where needed, because not you cannot do everything by yourself. So you need to be dependent. You need to have right partners to help you out. So consider managed services, security services, or specialized consultation to fill the skill gap and handle the complex tasks, allowing internal team to focus on the core activities. Uh, and the next thing would be the investment in the employee training. As I talked about the human building a firewall, which is important to get visibility on the prevailing threat which is there in the organization. Similarly, when you are adopting a technology, it is very important to skill the existing workforce on those technologies as well. Otherwise, there will still be a gap. People may not be aware of the technology, and they may not be able to support that particular technology, and will give you the desired result what you are looking at. Along with that, scalability security solutions also plays a very important role, because it as the threats are evolving, you need to scale your security posture as well. So the framework which you have designed or have been trying to implement in the organization need to scale from time to time. Similarly, like in IT, when the scale when the business increases, you keep on adding more resources and technologies, maybe adding more servers, adding resources in the existing servers and all. Similarly, in technology as well, you need to adopt flexible scalable security tools that can involve with the organization growing needs without requiring consistent reinvestment. So it plays a very important. It is important to identify such tools and have those implemented in the organization. The last thing I want to focus upon is the embracing compliance automation, which is very important with the changing landscape. The regulators are evolving as well, so they are coming up with new regulation, new requirements. So utilize tool that automate compliance monitoring and reporting to save time and reduce the burden on the staff. Otherwise, most of the time, people are just collecting evidence to fulfill the compliance requirement, by combining automation, outsourcing, and prioritization, companies can address evolving security challenges while managing the limited resource efficiency.
Yeah. So, what I understand is also that almost all the firms today have myriads of security solutions like EDIR, EDR, SIM, content security, WAF, firewall, and this gives a sense of security, but it is mostly misplaced. Whenever we investigate a cyber incident, we also see that all these tools are present, but they were not configured appropriately and were not optimized. So, how do you provide reasonable assurance that the tools that you are using are optimized, they are sufficient, and they have capability to detect, prevent, and respond to cyber attacks?
See, there are few learnings I would like to share here, because that I have collected over a period of time. So it is very important that after implementing a particular tool, we should not leave it as it is, because you need to keep on enhancing the tools as well. Hence, continuous monitoring and testing of those tools becomes very important. Regularly test and assess the tool's performance through simulated cyber attacks, red team exercise to identify the weakness and ensure they are detected and responded accurately, because there are new functionality will keep on adding. I give an example. In one of my previous organizations, we adopted a tool, and then while and actually there was a new functionality which was released, but there was no notification came, and it was a very interesting functionality which basically disallow somebody uploading a document using the web browser. Now, we through red teaming we could able to identify that, but if it would have not done, we would have never come to know that new functionality was released by the OEM until and unless we had a discussion during the time of renewal, or during the review of that particular tool, that this functionality is there, which helped me in protecting data exfiltration. Now, by continuous monitoring and continuous testing, you will be able to identify these aspects much earlier, and then have it implemented to keep your organization safe. The second aspect would be the integration and the visibility. Ensure that the security tools are integrated to provide a unified view of threat, enabling faster detection and response. Isolated tool can create blind spots, and that's where the SIM came into the picture, where you collect all the logs and you get a common visibility of all the logs and the incidents which are getting generated out of it. Probably bring in automation by the implementation of SOAR on top of it, and then identify a certain incident and try to mitigate them there itself. Another aspect is define very clear KPIs pertaining to each and every tool. So what do you expect from that tool to deliver? If you do not identify those KPIs, the tool will just like a showpiece which is there at every individual's home, which adds no value. It is also important to regularly update and fine tune the tools. Like I gave you the example, one of the things which protected the data exploitation, the new functionality which we found out. So it is very important that we need to continuously communicate with the OEMs and keep on discussing the new features which are there, and keep on enhancing our tool as well, to keep pace with the prevailing threats or the advanced threats which are there. So it is very important to keep on testing it on a regular basis. This ensures the security infrastructure works under the real world conditions. So when the incident happens, the team will be able to work, and the tools will be able to give it the desired result. Then the last aspect I would like to touch base upon is, it's good that you have internal knowledge and you have the team who can work on that, but it is also important to have expert oversight. So engage with other cyber experts, maybe a consulting firm or somebody from outside, a freelancer or somebody that who can give you an expert advice on the managed services, because the way threats are evolving, the organization doesn't evolve. Let's face the fact, right? You get to know about a threat, and then you start looking for a technology, see whether it fits in your organization, or probably you can adopt that particular technology or not. That's the reason it is important that you keep yourself integrated, glued, interactive with the industry experts, and keep learning from them about the new threats and take the next step. So by taking these steps, uh, so by taking these steps, it provide a reasonable assurance that the cybersecurity tools are both sufficient and optimized for an organization.
What is my return on security investments? How do I justify when this is something that I am trying to do to avoid getting something, while generally businesses measure the success of investment based on what you get out from this investment? So how do you manage this equation when every year you ask for more budgets for both CapEx, OpEx, improvement in security processes, optimization of tools, etc.?
So this is a management and board level question which has been asked every time you go for an investment. But the good thing is, the way threats are evolving, this is no more a concern. So justifying security on return can be challenging, but it is not difficult, especially when measuring success typically focus on the tangible outcomes. So if you compare your investment with the threat and the damage it would have bring into the organization, it is much more easy to justify. However, the security investments can be justified from my perspective in following ways. I mean this is the practice which I've been following. So risk mitigation along with cost avoidance, if you compare it, so it will help you out. The ROI of the security investment is often seen in an avoidance or a potential loss, because it's not generating anything for you, right? It's an investment which is protecting the organization. So you need to map it with the data breaches and the fines or the reputational damage. For instance, preventing a cyber attack can save uh, millions of rupees in recovery cost or legal fee or regulator penalties. If you link it with that, you will be able to uh, generate a justifiable case on an investment. The other way to look at it is the reducing the downtime and the operational disruption, because the security investment help in minimizing the impact, right, of the incident, ensuring the business continuity and reducing the operational downtime. So this in turn supports revenue retention and customer trust. So it's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is quantifying threat prevented. So, like I said, gave an example of SIEM earlier. So, if you use one of the KPI metrics to detect the threat or the incident, prevented, help demonstrate the value of security tool in proactively reducing the risk. So, if you have identified a ransomware and then isolated the machine, protected it from proliferating within the organization, or probably a malware ransomware will be, I mean, two larger examples. So, uh, but yeah, if you can able to demonstrate, then it actually justifies the investment we have made. It helps you in tracking the reduction in the successful attack over time, provide a measurable outcome as well, which will help you in proving the ROI. The other thing which other parameter can be looked at is the compliance and the regulatory benefit, because these days regulator have become more stringent, and they have been I would say guiding organization. I would not say detecting, but though it's there in the regulatory guideline itself, the technologies which should be adopted by the organization. But still, the organization are be guided to make investment to help meet compliance requirement, avoid legal penalties, and enhance the organization standing with regulator and customers, which basically helps in building the customer trust. Along with that, if you see the long-term value, it also emphasizes on the benefits of building security culture, right? Preventing future incident and enhancing the company's resilience against evolving threats. So that gives a comfort to the customer, and it helps building customer trust. So by framing security investment in terms of risk avoidance and business continuity, I mean, you can easily demonstrate the ROI despite absence of the incidents.
Yeah. But largely, the ROI is still intangible. Are you considering using cyber risk quantification across the enterprise so that you can justify the investment, or it is little immature and then quantification parameters and having the right set of tools and having that awareness still needs some time to evolve?
So that will take some time to evolve. So I have in my previous organization worked in an organization in my previous tenure. I mean, I worked with an organization who was into cyber quantification, and we used to have a product, but we saw that the adoptability of that is was low. The product need to be evolved, and it need to be definitely mapped with the real threats and real challenges which are there prevailing in the industry, and then accordingly you will start seeing benefit out of it. So still and it is not the product which will help you out, it is the collaboration of all the OEMs and the platforms which are giving you quantification. They need to work collaboratively to come up with a framework. So today if I go with X company, they have a different way of calculating a risk. If I go to Y company, they have a different way of calculating a risk and giving a value, coming out with a value, a quantification value, which can help me out and give direction in which way I have to go, right? So
Yeah.
these things need to be looked at, and this needs to be collaboratively worked with them. It's not only the OEM. I said OEM and the quantification company, but actually the industry as well. They need to work with industry to see the real challenges which are there in the industry, and then come up with a framework. Otherwise, it will just be a methodology which has different outputs.
Yeah, I think they are also maturing from qualitatively assuming a threat vulnerability pair and probability and impact, using sensors to identify the attack paths and then computing the probability and then using value at risk or a fair estimates to come up with some loss methods like probability of loss or loss given default, and then trying to justify the revenue loss and regulatory penalties or financial losses, so on and so forth, with the value at risk to justify the investment. But yes, you rightly said it will take some more time before the model matures, and then this model also need to be explained internally so that everyone is aligned to that model to really adopt and then approve investment based on that.
See, most
Now,
important in this particular aspect is I would just like to add is the adopt. So the model need to be flexible enough to be adopted by an organization. So like one size doesn't fit all. So model need to be, so not necessarily if I have certain controls, these other organization may have a similar controls, right? So it varies.
attack surface and regulatory compliance requirements and certain penalties and many other computations will be very specific to industry. I agree. So I think the input that goes into organization profiling helps a lot. So with that also brings me another dimension of regulators. What I'm seeing is that regulators in India are becoming more stringent, and then they are coming up with a regulation which are prescriptive, and the customer demands also with respect to say security and privacy, and demands of a business to become cyber resilient is also increasing. So how do you manage the expectation of everyone, right from the regulator to your stakeholders to customers, and give assurance that you are compliant, you are still managing the risk, and or you are really asking a lot, with very little assistance that typically a regulator.
Yeah. No, see, regulator is enhancing their cybersecurity controls and giving inputs to all the organization from time to time, and they are also evolving as the threats are evolving. Now, to balance the increasing pressure from the regulator and the customer, and the need of cyber resilience, so there are various steps can be taken to protect that. I mean, to protect the interest and the data of the customer and provide an insurance in the form of compliance. So one way of achieving is centralizing the compliance management, because these days every organization goes to multiple audits. So it is important to to have a centralized platform to manage the multiple compliance requirement, which helps in streamlining the process and avoid duplication of effort across various regulatory bodies. Another important aspect is to maintain the compliance roadmap. Now, it's a journey which an organization need to walk through. So when you develop a roadmap that aligns regulatory requirement with business objective and integrate them with regular business processes, it helps you ensure a long-term sustainability, right? Now, regulator have come up with framework. You have adopted the tool. You have automated certain monitoring requirements. It is important to do a regular audit to ensure that okay, the when you have implemented certain things, adopted the framework, implemented controls which are required by the regulator, the internal and third part, it's implemented internally thoroughly, and also the third parties which are engaged with you are assessed as well for the compliance status, because you are as vulnerable as your partners, right? And you need to demonstrate the diligence to the regulator as well, that that's a process which you have adopted and you have been implementing. So these needs to be aligned. Another important aspect is to invest in a security framework. When I say invest, it's not may not be the physical investment. It may not be the monetary investment, but as an organization, you need to adopt a framework which best suits the organization culture, the organization standard, from a regulator perspective or from the industry perspective. Last thing I would propose is to bring in transparency. Regularly report on compliance status to regulator and also the stakeholders. Now, when I say stakeholders, it's internal and external both. Showing the proactive efforts to maintain security and privacy standard. Now, by streamlining compliance effort, automating processes, and maintaining transparency, you can meet the demands effectively while ensuring the data security and the resilience for the organization.
Sure. So what I understood is that you deploy a baseline control framework from any best practices like ISO 27001 or NIST CSF, and then you map your regulatory requirements with those controls and you rationalize the controls so that you test once and comply to many, and then automate some of the controls monitoring and maintain a compliance roadmap about different regulators and when they are coming up for a regulatory compliances so that you do periodic internal assessments, conduct regular audits, and then demonstrate this to internal stakeholders, and also have transparency in external audits as well as pre-certification audits to have reporting to the regulators. So
That's correct. I did not name the framework
yeah,
intentionally. The reason being, I've seen organizations which basically try to adopt that and may not adopt it and just say that we are following the practice. So I I can give you an example.
yeah,
One of the plastic manufacturing company I was auditing in the past, when I was a partner with an organization. So they have adopted COVID, and they were like, we are happy with it and we do not want to go with any other framework or any other standard. We are happy with the processes which where what we are following, and that's good enough for us. Similarly, if you go to some of the other industries, you may find that they may have adopted the standard, but might have not gone for the certification as well. So like I said, that it's completely depend on the organization, how you want to drive it,
yeah.
and how you. So it's much easier for the regulator-driven organization because they have been mandated to follow a certain framework. But unfortunately, the fact and the truth is, even today, not every organization is following a standard framework which is required by the organization to stay protected from cyber attack.
Yeah, that was an example. You're right, that one can, use any framework and leverage the controls, and then either align, go for certification with the customer or the regulator demands, or they can just use those best practices to align their tools and processes. Uh,
Yeah.
Now this brings to another the question on another dimension about security in culture. What are the steps you believe firms should take to change the culture and make security as a part of the DNA? Are you investing in gamification, cyber range, simulation, tabletop exercises, or you are taking some other steps to make security objectives as a part of all business and technology roles which are ingrained into the organization?
Uh, so uh, have seen in multiple industries. So my response will be basis that the experience with the multiple industry itself. Gamification, other training, and other things comes at a later stage. The first and the most important thing is the leadership commitment, because cybersecurity, unfortunately, is one of the practice which flows from top to bottom, not bottom to top. So first, your leadership has to be committed and must prioritize security and set the tone for others to follow, making it very clear that security is the business imperative, not just an IT issue. It is very important, because if you don't set the culture, it, people will not take it seriously and may not start adopting it. The second aspect is the cross functional collaboration is very important. Integrate security. Security is not an individual task, right? So you can't have one person as a CISO or may have a security function, and think that everything will be good enough in an organization. So it is every individual's responsibility in the organization. So it needs to be integrated, ensuring all teams, from HR to engineering to admin to security guard who is sitting in your organization, understand their role in protecting the company's asset. Then comes the education. So we talked about training people in the organization. We talked about building human firewall. But most important aspect is regularly training and keeping your program updated with the examples of latest threat, highlighting the security best practices and the risks exposed to human error, through which they need to be aware of, and they should know the do's and don'ts to keep the organization safe. Then comes the gamification and cyber simulation, which helps them understand the threat better. Right? So it's very easy. The way we start learning by holding hand, you need to same way keep educating people by giving them examples and creating that scenario in which they may fall, and also tell them the steps to come out of that as well. So it should not be only one way traffic, it should be the two-way traffic. Learn and learn and give them an example and take output from that as well. So that's where, I mean, phishing is one of the exercise which most of the organization these days are doing to make at least everybody aware of it. But I think now it is a time that we should go away, move ahead from phishing, and bring in other kind of simulation and other kind of aspects uh, into the as part of the examples, to stay protected. The other thing is align security with the business goal. It is important because it has to be embedded as a culture in the organization, and the metrics need to be aligned accordingly. So when you align metrics along with the technology, it helps you in clearly defining the business and the technology role, ensuring security is part of the day-to-day operation, right? So that needs to be clearly documented and clearly communicated. Another aspect which I love promoting is the security. Start rewarding people. You need to recognize and reward employees who contribute to a strong security culture, fostering the positive reinforcement in the organization. So, following these investment in an interactive learning module and aligning security with business objectives uh, gives an affirmation and bring in transformation in the organization into the mindset that permeates every level of the organization.
Well said, Pawan. And are regulators really able to keep pace with change in technology and digital world, or they are little behind the curve, such as blockchain or Gen AI, as we see? But I see very limited controls. In fact, the controls on the API also started to be notified last year, while API has been there for almost 5, 6 years and is being prominently used. So, what are your views on regulators really keeping pace with the rapid technological changes to device control and enforce security controls for organizations?
See, again, it's an evolving evolving stream, and the industry itself is evolving. So we can't expect from the regulator to be on top of it. So as and when people get aware of get to know about new threats, new vulnerabilities, we work towards patching that and try to find a solution. And similarly, it applies to everybody. I mean, regulators uh, are not different from those aspects. So regulators do face significant challenges in keeping pace with the rapid technologies and advancements like blockchain and generative AI. So we were talking about blockchain 5 6 years back. We still see that it is yet to be adopted by many organizations and yet to come in the ecosystem itself. Until and unless it is there in the ecosystem, it will not be fruitful for every organization. But while they drive the adaptation of the control of measures, the fast evolving tech landscape often outpaces regulatory frameworks, and we have seen that as a challenge. This is what you were talking about as well, right? So that's one of the challenge. Now we need to look at the aspects from a different angle as well. Now let's look at it. uh, so what happens is when you face this kind of challenge, and we have seen people talking about, and in various debate it has been talked about as well. One is the skill challenge, which is already there in the industry. Second, obviously, this the investment towards the security is not as much as it is there in the dark web. So slowness in innovation puts the organization and the regulator typically behind in the with the emerging technologies due to its complexity and the time required to develop and implement a new law. Right. So it goes hand in hand. The things come the threat comes first, and then we find a solution to mitigate that, and the new regulation get updated to stay protected from future threats perspective. The second aspect we talked about, the skill challenges which are there, the limited expertise which is there. So often lack of technical expertise needed to fully understand the new technologies, making it harder to create effective and forward thinking from a regulator perspective or from a regulation perspective. The other aspect, if I look at it globally, especially in the regulator driven organization, there is no symmetry. So different countries and regions have varying level of regulation, and their maturity level is different as well, which is actually creating challenges for businesses to operate globally. Now, this consistency can lead to fragmented compliance effort. And at one stage, I mean, all regulators need to think of integrating that. I don't know whether it will happen or not, but that's the ideal state where we would like to see. Like for example, we are talking about DPDP. There is GDPR, and other countries like Singapore and US have their own data protection uh, policies and procedures, which are their rules and regulations are completely different. Where we are yet to see the rules of our DPDP Act. Now, there has to be a balanced control between reactive and proactive as well. So regulatory bodies do tend to be reactive, addressing the issues after they arise. We spoke about it. I mean, we identify a threat, we get to know about a threat, and then we start building controls in and around that. So that needs to change and move to a proactive approach. A new risk associated with the emerging technology, those needs to be evaluated and need to be reviewed. And the last thing which is needed is the collaboration. Like I mentioned, that the collaboration between the regulators, the industry leaders, and the tech expert is crucial to develop adopted framework. that can address future challenges while fostering the innovation culture within the industry or within the regulator itself, which is lagging today. I mean, that has to come up. Uh, to summarize, I mean, while the regulators are striving to catch up, but their ability to effectively manage rapidly changing technologies remain a challenge, requiring ongoing adoption and collaboration along with the industry and the tech experts over there.
Sure. Let's do one question on the artificial intelligence, because intelligence is the buzzword and it is getting adopted in slowly getting embraced with few unique use cases in each organization. So how do you ensure that there is an appropriate model and security controls? Because this is really an evolving field and there are not many baseline security controls that you can use for AI. But there are concerns of security, privacy, data protection, AI governance, and also assurance. So what are you doing really with respect to AI security overall holistically for any use cases that your organization might be using?
See, everybody is evolving. So we saw AI, then now we are seeing generative AI. There are various versions of AIs which are coming up. Everybody has started calling it out that their technologies have AI, inbuilt AI. We saw certain things which are there in with the OEMs, the machines which we use. It has inbuilt AI, whether it is phone, whether it is laptops or desktops. I mean, in the OS it has been inbuilt. But again, like I said, that it's evolving. So to keep pace with that, first of all, what is important is a clear framework which has to be there before the adoption. So far, there are frameworks which are released by NIST and all, but there is no regulatory framework which has come up related to AI. But to cope up with the adaptation of it, you need to define a clear governance policy, right? Which is important, which addresses the security, privacy, and the data protection measures, right? Ensuring you also need to ensure that it aligns with the regulatory standard. That is first and the foremost thing. The second is adopting the data privacy as design, because that's the most important and talked about concern as of today. So earlier it used to be the data which was fuel for the organization. Now it is the real data which is the real time data which is the fuel for the organization. So you need to ensure the AI tool which has been adopted are built with data privacy at their core, using the technique of data anonymization, encryption, and differential privacy to protect sensitive information. And that's what the organization are fostering upon. The next thing is transparency and accountability. Now, you adopt different AI framework, different technologies, you may not know, I mean, transparently what is happening at the back end. So it is very important to implement that transparency mechanism to track the AI decision making capability, the processes, and ensure accountability. Then document how the AI system is being trained. Because if you keep inputting banana is orange, banana is orange, banana is orange, it will give you the result as an orange. Even if you type banana, it will give you orange, right? So that's how it is being built. So that's how. So it is very important that you document that how the AI system is being trained, tested, and deployed to ensure compliance and prevent bias. It should give you the required result than just throwing a junk. For an organization, it is very important to do the risk assessment of your AI model. So regularly conduct risk assessment to identify potential vulnerabilities in AI system and adopt control based on involving threats to the regulatory requirement. Then comes the audit. Now, audit and monitoring is sacrosanct against all the technologies which you use, not different from AI for AI as well. Establish a continuous monitoring of AI system to detect security breaches, privacy violation, and most importantly, unethical behavior. You need to implement audit trails for AI-driven decision to ensure traceability. Last thing I would like to highlight again on the AI ethics and bias control. Like I gave an example, if you keep putting banana as an orange, banana orange, it will give even if you type banana, it will give you result as an orange into AI development, ensuring fairness, accountability, and mitigating the bias in the model. You remember if I mean there was a time when one of the platform on on the internet used to give only white people pictures, right? And then there was a concern which was raised that while searching a particular image, why it always give the white people picture, not the other color picture, and then it created a bias concern around it. So that's how the model has been built, and it has to be revamped. And again, now combining the strong governance policy, risk management, and continuous monitoring can ensure you stay secure and compliant with AI adoption.
Yeah. I think you have covered everything in the AI because you started with having an AI governance, setting up a clear policies that define the regulatory requirements, approval mechanisms, governance, and controls. Then you touch base on data security and privacy, which also included the source of data that is being used to train the model and having the right representation of the data to avoid biasness. And then you spoke about transparency and accountability to document how and what algorithms are being used, what data is being used, how it is being tested, and then doing continuous risk assessment and also auditing and monitoring the use of AI to fine tune with human reinforcement. So that's fantastic. So one of the
Okay,
critical
so
factors
yeah.
is data. And what we see is that with rapid digitization, data is everywhere and data proliferation has happened. It is at the endpoint, it's on the cloud, it's inside and outside the organization, it is with third parties. So how do you ensure data governance, data management, data access, data privacy? What are certain frameworks that you apply and what are the set of controls you ensure that security is going along with the data?
Mm. See, one of the biggest challenge and that's the organization faces, data is everywhere. You never know how many copies of a particular data is residing where. And the along with that, there the one of the biggest challenge which is the data classification. So which if the organization is finding difficult to deal with, and but that's one of the thing first needs to be addressed before it goes into the protection and look at the other aspect of having a privacy or the data encryption in place, because until and unless you know what you need to protect, you can't protect. And you need to define a framework in terms of you need to look at the data at rest, data in motion, and data in use. All three modes needs to be protected. So it's a journey which you need to go through. So like I mentioned, that it start with the data classification. It's very important to classify the data on sensitivity level, whether it is public, whether it is confidential, sensitive, uh, and apply appropriate security and access control on it, depending on the sensitivity of the data. The second aspect which comes after you classify the data is the access control. Now, it is so there will be a legacy which an organization may be carrying, but at one stage you need to break that legacy and have a policy implemented with strict controls on the access of that particular data, ensuring that only authorized individual or the system can access the sensitive data. Adopt the principle of least privilege and the multi-factor authentication, right? That will give you an assurance that, okay, only the authorized people are accessing the data. Now, like I mentioned, the data is residing all over the place. You don't know how many copies are there in the organization until unless you run a discovery and then discover that uh, data, that how many copies of that particular data is there in the organization. But at the same time, you need to protect that as well, where comes the data at risk. So applying data encryption helps you in meeting that requirement. Encryption, data at rest, and in transit to protect it from unauthorized access of or breaches, both internally and externally, is important. So appropriately choose and implement the technology. And data at rest, when I refer, it is not only the endpoint which needs to be protected, it is also the servers and the databases need to be protected as well, because that's where the core or the volume of the data is. At end user, you may find multiple copies of one particular data, but the core is there in the database or at the server level. Then you need to define the privacy framework. You may adopt a privacy framework which is already prevailing, or you can develop basis the framework according to the organization or a particular industry, right? Now, privacy strategy need to be aligned with your regulatory requirement. If you're not a regulator-driven organization, you may adopt some piece of the privacy which is relevant for your industry or your organization, not need to adopt the entire framework. That's the beauty of having a framework. Implement the data anonymization and pseudonymization technique where necessary to safeguard the personal data. That plays a very important role. Now comes after you have encrypted, after you have restricted the access, did the data classification, and run the discovery. The important aspect comes is the audit and the monitoring. Now, continuously monitoring the data access and the usage, conducting regular audits to detect any unauthorized activities or vulnerabilities is important. That's where your DLP and other tools will come into the picture, where you implement it, and then ensure that the data which is critical or confidential for the organization or sensitive for the organization does not go out of the organization. Put a monitoring mechanism, and then have a compliance mechanism behind it, so that whoever is practicing this should get punished as well. Then comes the training of individual, because if you give an option of manually classifying a data to the individual, they will never classify. So you need to bring in automation there and train people that what is the importance of classifying the data. An important gap which I always advocate is mapping the organization requirement with the real life example of an individual. So data is sacrosanct. Personal data, the definition of personal data is similar for an individual and for the organization. It doesn't differ. So personal data, if it is crucial and critical for an individual in his personal life, similarly, it is equally important and personal is for the organization as well. So both the person need to understand this. Hence, it is important to regularly train employee on data handling best practices, the security protocol, and the privacy regulation to mitigate the human error and the internal threats. Right? Then have an incident response plan established. So if there is an incident which has been identified, you need to have a clear data breach response plan to swiftly address any data privacy incident and ensure compliance with notification requirement. With implementing these strategies, I'm sure a secure or compliant data management uh, standard can be established in any organization, mitigating the privacy risk.
So thanks. If I have to summarize this, you have said that you have to document the data lifecycle, identify and classify the sensitive data, then identify the interfaces, and based on the sensitivity data, implement controls ranging from encryption to access control policies to data anonymization, and then also train the users, automate and adapt and monitoring, continuous monitoring capabilities with tools like DLP, and also have a very clear data breach response plans. So with that, I would like to summarize the entire discussion. I think, Pawan, it was great interacting with you. We discussed about to align our security investment in line with risk. Second, to deploy a secure by design principles, starting from zero trust architecture and then having a defense in depth strategy, and continuously improving that. The third was that it is important not only to implement point security tools, but also to continuously optimize them, configure appropriately, test them, and update them. The fourth was that we have to test our controls with ransomware simulations, red teaming, and breach and attack simulations, etc. Fifth and important point was that to drive security, we have to have a tone at the top and leadership commitment. The second was also rewarding the good security behaviors. The seventh was look at automation, because it's very difficult to keep on skilling and employing people for every job. So as far as possible, look at certain managed service providers with commoditized skills, plus bringing in efficiency, effectiveness, and SME support where required, and automate the controls. Also, we discussed about having cyber dashboard in giving the right metrics to stakeholders and ensuring transparency with both internal and external stakeholders and regulators. We also touched based on AI with respect to governance, policies, monitoring, risk assessment, ethics, behaviors. And lastly, we touched base on data security with guardrails. So with that, we have come to an end of this. It was great discussing with you, Pawan. Really, I cannot thank you enough for your time. Appreciate and hope the listeners have got a very holistic view from a person who has worked in both consulting as well as now acting as a CISO for a very large organization. So thank you and
Thank you.
appreciate your time.
Thank you,
Have a
Chandra.
good day.
It was really nice interacting with you. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and also press the bell icon to stay notified of all the future released videos. See you in the next one. Thank you.